Games, board games. I might be talking to you about some board games that are totally new. These are some things that are coming from me in the year 2023. Of course, there's could be a catastrophe. I mean, that I could die or have a calamity. But I'm going to make all these games. It's totally my name. As surely as Bez is my name. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m. is UK time. Time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. And yeah, today is like a little follow up to what I did yesterday, where I announced 8 new things in a slightly facetious way. Everything I said was genuinely true. I mean, like, if you really like the idea of being able to lose a game on your first turn, then a game about auctioning cubes after winning an auction to become the auctioneer is a perfect game for you. But of course, there's a bit more to it than that. Of course, it's not just about being able to lose the game on your first turn. I want to talk today a little bit more about not just what weird feature it has, but also a little bit more about it. And this is maybe a proper announcement for stuff that will hopefully all be released either at UK Games Expo or at my leaving party, 11th, 12th, 13th August. So that might be a preview, and then it will be a bigger release UK Games Expo next year. We'll have to see. So recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Yesterday I was feeling really rubbish, and yeah, I started off, I would say, like 4 out of 10. Then people said some mean things on the internet, 3 out of 10, and then I was trying to gear myself up to go to this party, and with me feeling slightly insecure about myself and like everything, just couldn't. I just played a couple of 100 games on Board Game Arena, and yeah, I'm still currently unbeaten in 2-player photosynthesis, although 3-player I've lost, I think, 4 times so far. I've only 20 games, 1 out of 24. But yeah, I'm enjoying Boop. I'm enjoying like exploring all the games that there are over there. Brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? Exploration, like being able to see stuff and being able to try games for free. I think that whether you make the game available to try on Board Game Arena or one of the platforms, or boardspace.net, or one of the platforms that don't have rules enforcement, or whether it's a game where you say, you know what, chuck in anything, or just if you can't afford to chuck in anything, here's a community copy for you. Just grab the PDF and it will tell you the rules. I think that making things more accessible to those who really want to play games, because everyone wants to play games. I think games are a form of entertainment. Games are a form of expression, not just for the designer, but for the player. And games can be a form of, give us so much joy. And it's an interesting thing because obviously in this day and age of the internet, there's so much free media on YouTube that we can consume, but to have something actually interactive that maybe pulls us a little bit out of our funk and saying, hey, here's a rule set, you can go off and try it, whether it's with another person or even better, hey, here's something you can try on your own. So even if you don't have anyone around you, here's something you can try. I think that's a brilliant thing, trying things, making things available. And yeah, that's actually why with my physical stuff, I do try to put in community copies for just a couple of quid. So feel free to comment, ask questions from like, follow, and I will crack on and talk about the games that I announced yesterday. So firstly, Categorical. As I said, this one is totally real. It's just been massively delayed, and I feel bad about that all the time. It's something that funded at the start of 2020. It funded in March 2020, the month when the world went askew and the world changed a lot. And then soon afterwards, before we recovered from COVID, like we then had, before we were out of lockdown, then there was Brexit, and that was like a horrible thing. And then that meant that getting stuff shipped over from Poland would suddenly cost a lot more. And shipping stuff outside was like a bigger challenge. And it's a very different landscape today. I am going to print it. It's not going to be what I hoped when I made that Kickstarter. It's not going to be a nice linen finish thing in a box. It's going to be cards, print on demand in a small tuck box, but it will have like a wee box. And I hope that, yeah, I hope that people will still enjoy it. I've just got to get over my fear of making something slightly inadequate, and I've got to just get it done because it's been way too long and it's been an albatross around my neck, but I'm determined to get this done for UK Games Expo. Categorickell. Oh yeah, and if you don't know what kind of game Categorickell is, it's one of the LDEC games. So technically, when you buy this, you will get access to 50 plus games. There's a contest that I sponsor, like the winner gets £100 for design, and then if I actually publish their game, then it's going to be a lot more. So Tom Cauldron, who designed Categorical, that was the initial winner. It's for 2 teams. It can be 1 versus 1, or it can be 1 versus 2. You know how teams work. A team can be a team of 1 person. And each team is shouting things. It's a game of quick recall. And for the entire game, you might agree that the subject is films. And then you've got to shout out a film that starts with one of the letters on the card. Whoever does that moves the active stack 1 closer to them. There's 5 potential stacks. If you get it all the way towards you and then score again, you score a point. It's like a tug of war. You need to go boop, 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 pull it towards yourself, and then you score. And then once you've scored a point, it resets, and then you go again. And then you keep going on until the end. Some games can be, you know, relatively high scoring, but typically it's kind of like football, by which I mean soccer. I mean, just for our American friends, the scores are normally in that region, like 1-0, or even 0-0 can be a thing, but there is a tiebreaker that never fails to result in a victory. And like 2-2 is, if you score more than 3 points, wow, you've done well. But yeah. A game about auctioning cubes after winning an auction to become the auctioneer. This is a game I started working on after my stream with Alan Paul about English auctions, where we discovered that there aren't that many games with English auctions. There's less than 10 on Board Game Geek. That's, I mean, some of the things on Board Game Geek that are attributed to English auctions are misattributed. And of course, if you described every single style of Monopoly, then it would be more than 10. But if we lump all the Monopolies together, it's definitely less than 10 games with English auctions. And so then the question becomes, why is that? And should there be more games with English auctions? And I think there should. And so I wanted to make a game that really embraced the English auction. To make it a true English auction, the auctioneer should be incentivized to make the auction go as high as possible. They should be cajoling people into paying more. They should be doing mind games. Like on Friday, I played with Max, Doric, and Alan, and oh my gosh, this is terrible. James Goodman. And we played, and well, I watched them play because I wasn't wanting to influence the game. I watched them play twice. And through both times, Max was saying, yeah, you want to pay 7. Yeah, you want to jump in with a 10 at this point. And Doric was, no. And then, but like playing these games, trying to cajole each other to pay more. And the reason I'm able to incentivize that is because the auctioneer gets all the money from the winning bid. And that's the key design twist, I guess. The auctioneer getting all the money from the winning bid, therefore they are incentivized to do a really good job as auctioneer and pump up the price. So obviously you can't just have the same auction over and over again. You need to have different values of auction to give the game some wrinkles, to give it some flavor. So how do you determine who gets to be auctioneer? It wouldn't be fair if you just went round, because then maybe someone's got to rubbish auction to auctioneer off on their turn and vice versa. So then I think it was just before the first time I played it, I decided, well, how about you are going to have a sealed bid auction to become the auctioneer. So everyone puts down some cards, flips them over, whoever bids the most, and there's a tiebreaker at that point with whoever's closer to the left of the previous auctioneer. So the auctioneer is destined to always move on if there's a tie. They become the new auctioneer, and that money that you've bid goes out of the game to the bank, and then you're like, haha, now is my time to shine. Now is my time to become the auctioneer. There's also a slight wrinkle with limited currency where you start off with a 1, 2, 2, 5, and 10, and those smaller denominations aren't worth that much in numerical value, but are worth so much in giving you flexibility. And so, yeah, there's something there. And I'm really proud of it. I've been at the point where I've slightly tweaked some numbers. I could carry on tweaking forever, but the whole point of the Betty Bargain Bags is to encourage me to get stuff out there. And I said, yeah, I don't think I'm going to try this again. And I was, no, you've tested it so much. And then, so yeah, that's basically done. That's going to come out. So I just need to draw some stuff and get it all assembled. Hashtag drawn together game. Honestly, this is ready to go as a Kickstarter tomorrow. The only reason I'm not doing this as a Kickstarter and gearing up for this is because I've got my other Kickstarters that I need to fulfill first. And so hashtag drawn together game is a game I think I invented early last year. It came from me thinking, okay, I want a real coloring in game. I'm aware that there's games where you color in stuff, but typically the games where you color in stuff, in the end, are about a mathematical model. I mean, something like Fake Artist in New York is slightly closer, where you're making marks on paper and it's about those marks that you make. I want something like that for a coloring in sheet, where it's about the aesthetics. The exact color that you choose means something. The location, it's not something that you can calculate on, with maths, although I guess AI can start calculating human desires at this, or if it can't already, it probably could very soon. But yeah, I'm sure that you could. But what happens is you spend 20-ish minutes, 2 players, going back and forth, coloring in one section on the sheet until the sheet is completely filled in. And then you say, hey, what does this look a bit more like? And hey, what does this and there's 2 objectives on every sheet. So I'm just going to drawn together. On each sheet, oops, that's why I do hashtag drawn together game. It's literally in the name of the game. So I'm going to present so here we go. So here, one person's taken turns and try to make it look more like a circle. One person's tried to make it look more like a triangle. Which one do you think it is more like? And the 2 players show it to a judge, and the judge could be just putting it on social media, or it could be asking a random stranger at a nearby table. If you're in a gathering, like at a board game thing, then hopefully these people will at least be considered acquaintances. You'll feel comfortable talking to them. If you're playing in public and you're a bit extroverted, hopefully you're able to just show it to someone nearby and say, what does this look more like? If you are in public and you're feeling really shy, you can always just put it on social media and say the first answer determines what it is. And here's another triangle versus circle. Here we've got ghost versus tree on the left and ghost versus tree on the right. The same exact game, but colored, but played twice. And so one time, I would say most people say the ghost one time the tree one, and the same person was playing the ghost. I was doing the ghost, and it was just that my opponent in one of them was less aesthetically minded. And we've got car versus shark, and there is also heart versus skull, but I can't see that for some reason just now. Maybe if I click on latest. Heart versus skull. That's cat versus human, which might be a little bit unfair. This is one of the heart versus skull, and I think, and there's another heart versus skull. And so, yeah, you've got all these coloring in sheets, and whilst they are, how can I put this? Whilst playing a new sheet is something that brings you back into the game. It's like playing a new level. But each sheet at the same time is hopefully involved enough that you would say, okay, you won. Let's do that again. Let me rematch you. And I'm thinking, yes, this is a game that could, with the level design and everything, I could spend decades perfecting it, because each sheet is kind of like designing one game. It's almost like a new genre. And I'm going to do like a super low thing where I charge not that much, and then I say this is basically early access, and if you join in, you'll be getting all these sheets, and then there'll be another Kickstarter down the line, which is for more expensive. But yeah, drawn together. I'm really proud of this, and I think it's totally different. Okay, a game about absurdly abstract creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises. Look, I might have been slightly flippant, but the truth is, yes, this is kind of a cash-in. And for the record, yes, I do have clothes other than red. 90% of my clothes that are not socks or pants, and I mean pants in the British way, not the American way. 90%, I mean, half of my pants are red even, and half of my socks are red. But I do have other things, like I've got fluffy socks that I couldn't get. Anyway, but yeah, a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises is still the one game that continues to sell well from my shop, despite the fact that a game about cute comical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises, in my opinion, is strictly better. I think that there were more emotions in those creatures in the sequel, but the sequel did very well as well. It was easy to sell. People at UK Games Expo last year loved it, and they were like, yeah, we want to buy this new version. And at Aircon, a few people were asking for it, and it's just temporarily out of stock. And a couple of people said, yes, you should make a new version. I would buy it. I enjoyed both of the previous things. I would want more creatures. So that's basically what this is. This is me taking a game that people already love, and I think that it did something different with noise making. I mean, there's not that many games where you need to make identifiable noises, and it's not like Dixit. And that's the key thing. It's not like Dixit, where you're trying to be correct, get someone correct, but not everyone. Because if that was the case, I would be incentivizing people to make vague noises, and making vague noises is easy. I want to incentivize people making clear noises, making these expressive noises, and those expressive noises are going to be the ones that get you laughing, that get you entertained, and it turns everyone into an entertainer. It's a game that makes the players entertaining. And absurdly abstract, I'm just going to be inspired by, obviously, Picasso. I'm going to pay less attention to the physiology of the monsters. It might just be kind of things going on, and I might use swoops of colour. I'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm going to try and make it look very different. Okay, a game about guessing answers to questions that no one really knows. I said that this is a game for people who play quiz games and then they hate it when someone else knows the answer. And this game was actually inspired by a post on the worst Kickstarter ever thread on Board Game Geek, where it was a quiz game about, I think, like some small tiny town. And everyone was like, yeah, this is kind of silly. Why do you make this? And I was like, hey, it seems like a really badly designed game, because if it's just a generic Trivial Pursuit ripoff, or hey, answer a bunch of questions, see who gets the most correct type thing about this tiny town, I mean, that's got the target audience of everyone who lives in this tiny town. And if they're on Kickstarter, that seems a bit, they've misjudged their audience, I guess. I mean, for sure, if I made something for the city of Carcassonne, I would be planning to, I mean, this was even smaller than Carcassonne, so it's more like me doing something, yeah, I like Kilmarnock, which is a small suburb of Glasgow. And if I wanted to do something about Kilmarnock, well, I'd try to work with some locals and I'd make it clear this is just for the locals. But I thought, what if it was so hyper specific that no one knows the answers? What if the game was about what happened to Bez as Bez was going through and wandering around on November the 20th, 2022, like whatever date, it doesn't really matter. But could you make a game where you expect no one to know? And then in my mind, I'm thinking, well, you've got to have some vague idea. It can't be just what's the number I'm thinking of. That's not entertaining. You want some clues. Like the clues might be on this date, Bez went out and spent so much on fish and chips. How many chips were in that packet? And source, Bez counted those chips. And so I wouldn't, this isn't the kind of thing that I would typically know. Even if I'd eaten the fish and chips, I would have to actually go through and count. And I will be going through and making 49 questions. And I've played it a bunch, I've play tested it. The way it works, the way the actual game works is each round there's one, how can I put this? One estimator and everyone else goes higher or lower. So the estimator might say there were 30 chips, and then everyone else simultaneously puts their thumbs out and says, I think it's higher, I think it's lower. So you've either got to thumb up or thumb down. And then the number is revealed. First, if the estimator managed to split the vote, and splitting the vote might mean a slightly different thing with the giant player counts. I mean, obviously 15, if you've got 14 opponents, then it's not enough to just get 1 and 13. You need to split it equally-ish, let's say. Basically, at least a third rounded up need to be voting, but I will have a little chart to remind people what those numbers are so they don't have to do the maths. So if you've got the vote split, you get a point. It doesn't matter whether your number was completely off target. It just matters that you're splitting the vote. That's all that matters. And then for everyone else, the estimators, if they voted higher and it was higher, they get a point. If it was lower, then they get a point. And that's the game. And technically, you could keep playing and you could see who's won the most games and then rotate. But the questions are going to change. And later on, there's going to be a little bit of a legacy aspect. Not that you play it and then you're done with it, but that you play it and then you make marks on the paper and then you prepare it for the next person that you're then going to give it to. So when you buy your copy, the first large number of these cards will be fixed questions. You can't replay them, but then there'll be a second chapter where the numbers are slightly different based on who's playing, and then yeah, it gets a bit more ridiculous, and you'll be able to gift your copy to someone else, and there'll be an idea of, oh wow, this is all the number of people that have played it in the past. Oh wow, there's this many signatures on the back. Yeah, and so I say it can only be played 49 times because that's how many questions there are. A game about making wordy connections, making group poetry, 1 to 36-ish players. I will say that I feel like the full experience of this game is at the higher player counts. For me, if you play it, I think the ideal player count for this game is about 12 to 24-ish. I mean, you can definitely play with 36-ish because I've done it. I now play this. You can definitely play with 4 people, and under the suggestion of someone, you can play it solo. There is a solo mode, although it does feel very different. The core game was inspired by my activities at Design Camp at Now Play This last year, and the theme was democracy. And wandering around the soundscape with people making different noises, because we were making noises in order to vote, so I thought, this is really interesting, just moving around, hearing what people are saying. That's what I want to recreate. And if you bought multiple decks, you could probably play this game for like hundreds of players, but which I plan to do at my leaving party for sure. But yeah, it's a game where, with large enough player counts, each player just has one word. If you've got smaller player counts, you might have multiple. And with your one word, you have to go around, search for people, and then you say, okay, my one word might be together. And I say together, 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 together. And I'm listening to hear what other words other people are saying. I'm speaking so other people can hear my word. And we're creating the soundscape, and we're trying to find other people with whom I can make a fragment of a sentence, something that feels vaguely meaningful, some sort of poetry to say, like, we stand together, or something like that, or we love together, or there might be any number of words. And if you don't like your words, you can go out and discard your word and pick up another thing, and that's totally fine. Try and make a connection with at least one of your words during the game. But yeah, it's not meant to be about, oh, you don't like your words, you're stuck with it. It's meant to be about you exploring and listening, and then finding, hey, can I find a connection with someone else? And it's actually just used to be called wordy connections, but if I'm going to print it in a Bezier bargain bag, I need to have it be a longer, more self-explanatory name. Okay, a game with terrible rules. Oh, I just realized this doesn't start a game about. A game with terrible rules about words that rhyme. So, yeah, this is even breaking the pattern of how I name my game. So, this is more of a multi-game game system. It's more of a tool, but there are games that I've got in my head that you can play with it. I had lots of fun with Chris and McCall in 2020 and every year since, and a few years before, playing, but specifically I had fun with them in 2020 playing an early version of this game. It was just an idea of, well, people like making poems, but sometimes struggling for that rhyme is difficult. So what if you had cards, and on the back of the cards were a bunch of words that rhyme, and you need to use these words that rhyme, so it's both a tool to help you find stuff in your poem, and both also a direction, both like a restriction to help direct you. And then on one side of the cards, you've got themes, topics that you might want to make a bit of poetry about. On the other side, you've got the words that rhyme. And so most of the rule sets are going to be about creating a poem with words that rhyme. And you decide, okay, let's choose this theme for this topic, and then let's try and work together to make a poem that rhymes. And at the end, if any of us are happy, we all win. And it's, sure, someone might call it an activity because there's not a clear-cut victory condition for most of these. There will be one game with a clear-cut victory condition for people who really want it, but it's going to be put together because it's one of, and yet another thing that I could be working on for decades, but I just need to get it out there. I need to say, hey, this is a thing. Do you like it? Please look at my thing and tell me if you like it. And if you don't, that's okay. I mean, I know that these things aren't going to be for everyone, but I want to invite everyone to play them. And finally, a game about deciding which cards to use before the game, technically known as deck construction, designed basically for just for one event. Should it be for just one event rather than just for one event? Yeah, I'll have to ask. Yeah. Designed basically just for one event. Yeah. So I really want to make a deck construction game that is financially accessible. This is where this notion comes from. I mean, look, I have had fun playing Magic the Gathering. I've had a lot of fun. I've not spent ridiculous amounts, but most of my pocket money went towards that when I was Wayne. And then I've played a few pre-releases in recent years. I bought a ridiculous number of cards from someone from like 20 quid, where they were like, yeah, here's a couple of thousand cards. Yeah, there's probably, and I went through them all, and there's probably like a small number that if I auction off, I might be able to get some value back. But the rest of them, you know how commons are, they go for less than a penny. I love this game. I love playing Huntic. I love playing Pokemon. I loved playing. I'm trying to think of all the other things I've played. It's too many. That's Quickfire. Yeah, the Mega Man game. Ace Ventura was terrible, but I enjoyed exploring it. The Star Wars Young Jedi, the Harry Potter, yeah. But like, I played so many CCGs, and I love that idea of deck construction, of saying, hey, these are my cards, and I'm going to tweak them. Now, a lot of my inspiration comes from about 12, 15 years ago when I bought discontinued packs of Huntic, and I've still got a ridiculous number of booster packs that I might either sell on unopened or do something with at some point with someone before I leave. But I had, I think, 3 starter sets, and the starter set is 60 cards, but it's 60 predefined cards. And what I said to my friend was, okay, well, we've got exactly this. We'll play once with these 2 tiny 30-card decks, and then how about I'll give you this one, and you'll make your deck. You're technically only meant to use either good or bad, but let's just ignore that deck construction rule and use whatever we want. And you'll make your deck, I'll make my deck. And when I made my ideal deck, and we said, yeah, you can make it any number of cards you want, like I had this interesting thing where it was like as lean as I could possibly make it, and I think it was like maybe 17 cards or something, where just as I was getting to the bottom of it, there was one card which would allow me to get cards out of my discard pile into my deck. And I loved that idea that I can see all the cards right here. You've got exactly the same cards. I mean, I love booster draft with pick and pass drafting, sushi go style drafting. I love that. I love that it gets everyone on an equal playing field. I love the notion of, but I really love the idea of everyone's got exactly the same thing. You make your deck, I make my deck. Our decks are probably going to be very different. And you don't need that many cards to do this. And I'm determined to make a deck construction game. And this is going to be like the first iteration of it. This version is going to be released at my leaving party. And everyone who attends my leaving party will get one copy. And I guess they can buy additional copies if they really want. And yeah, there will be a tournament of, okay, what do you, yeah, let's have everyone get together and see what decks you've made and analyze this. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And so my thoughts were, okay, let's imagine you've got about 50 cards. How small a deck does it need to be for you to feel like you've done some deck construction? I talked about this with a fellow game designer, Glenn. Anyway, let's call them Glenn because that's their actual first name. And Glenn said, well, if you're using more than 40%, if you're using more than 20 cards, it feels like you've not got enough say in what you actually use. So minimum deck size should be 20. 20 seems reasonable. I don't want to force people into that difficult decision of, oh my gosh, how many cards do I use? Do I use, is 10 a viable number? But yeah, I want to allow people to explore that space and go down to 20 cards, which I think is probably close to the minimum, especially since 5 of those cards are taken out of your deck to be, you know, the castle, which is your life points. So you've only got 5 life if you get attacked 5 times, or if you're dealt 5 damage by direct damage spells, then you lose. Now, if you've only got 20 cards, how can I make it so that there's enough going on with these cards? I thought, okay, every card needs to be multifunctional. So I've got a system, and yeah, I will actually I was going to have a no, I probably don't have any easy photos to show you right this moment, but all of the cards are domino shaped, by which I mean there are 2 squares connected to one another. And one square is a module for a creature or a contraption. And so you can spend resources, sometimes it's free, you just slot it in and then put it under the other cards, and then there's a little bit poking out, and this is your contraption or creature that's going. Once your creatures are finished, once they don't have any open ends, then you can start attacking and defending with them. With the contraptions, you can start running them whenever you want because they're mechanical. You don't need to have finished it. If it's got like a wire hanging off, that's totally fine. And so you've got the contraptions to generate more resources for you. You've got your creatures to do your attacking. And on the other side of the cards, you've got a spell, which might be to detach stuff from your opponents, or to do extra attacks, or to do direct damage, or to play extra modules on each thing, because normally you can only interact with each of your creatures or contraptions once per turn. If you've added to it once, that's it, because creatures grow slowly unless you use a special card to speed yourself up. But maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you want to focus on discarding their hand. Maybe you want to focus on denying them and running out their deck. Because if you can't draw from your own deck, just to ensure that the game finishes, you then have to draw one of your castle cards. And Yeah, similarly, if you get damaged, you do draw one of your castle cards, which is obviously there's a lot that is inspired by a lot of other CCGs. I spent like a solid week just reading through the rules and watching videos about every other CCG, and yeah, that was something that I got. Like, there are some games where it's like, hey, I got surprise, I did well, I'm taking one of my cards. But yeah, this seems like a good potential catch-up mechanism. So look, not everything in the game is fresh, but I do think that the domino style of slipping it under your creatures or attacking with it, and the thing I'm proud of is that this makes, because the whole idea is that in its final form, um, it will be a case of you come to an event, here's like about 60 cards, and you get everyone makes the deck, and then you play a bunch of games, and then someone emerges a winner, and they get like a little, you know, alternative art card. So there will be collectible stuff, but the collectible stuff will just be alternate art. I think that, yes, I understand that by having a lot of money coming in, Magic the Gathering is able to fund a lot more like organized play. I understand that it's able to ensure that it's valuable enough for the shops to run it, but I might be misguided. I might be wrong, but I believe that there is potential for at least one game where you can pay 10, 15, 20 quid, like maybe pay 15 quid for like the stuff, and but like you're paying a bit more, and then the shop gives you a free drink. I like that idea of, hey, you're paying 20 quid for the night and you get a bowl of curry from the Ludicrous, and you also get these 60 cards, and then you're going to play around with them. And then the key thing is, at the end of the night, you take your cards home, and it's not like most pre-releases where you go home and it's like, well, I can't really play this against other people because my deck is so low powered compared to all the other people's decks. What you just got is like a standard power level deck, and it's not going to cost that much if you want to even get all the cards from that year. Like, I want a situation where you can get, like, if you spend, like, it will never be more than £100 to get like what's considered the most expensive deck. I see that as a ridiculous thing to have decks that are costing hundreds of pounds or thousands of pounds with some of the things. I believe strongly that all of those things should be mechanically reprinted, but sure, keep the original with like a little watermark or with a little symbol, or it looks slightly different, or those originals maybe they have alternate art, and and each time that you print a thing it's got slightly different art. But I feel strongly that the game should be available to play for everyone. I feel like it should be accessible for everyone. Yes, you still need to find your friends. And then what I've noticed is that a lot of people have said, oh, because I don't need to ponder hundreds and hundreds of cards, I get my 60 cards and now I'm pondering through these. A lot of people seem to actually be a lot more willing to spend the time, because yes, deck construction is a big ask for a typical player, for a typical consumer, to buy one deck for themselves and then maybe one deck for a friend, and then that's how you play. But I think that hopefully I can make it easy enough and accessible enough and enticing enough that you say, you know what, I can see different ways that I could go. I could go with just one resource to give myself more security so I'm never getting the wrong resource. I could go with a faster deck to try and speed up and rush out my opponents. I could go with a direct damage deck. I could go with there's a few cards that say they give you a bonus for doing more in a turn. I could go with a deck that draws a really big hand and then it tries to stall out the game and tries to slow out the thing and then maybe does a lot of stuff at once. And so there's a few, because there's a bunch of cards about recursion. And I'm at the point where I think the basic rules of the game might be done, but I'm doing card design and I'm really excited about this. And yeah, I might even have very early versions. And hello, Josie. It's lovely to see you, and I hope you're generally well. Lots of love. Thank you for joining. And yeah, I've just finished saying how all the games that I announced yesterday were actually totally real. And it's no longer April 1st, so hopefully everyone actually believes me. So, question of the day, question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. My question of the day is, do you have a favorite flower? Yeah, do you have a favorite flower? I'm thinking like I do have a strong connection with the purple thistle flower, like just the flower on the top. I mean, obviously it's the national flower of Scotland. I think it's quite lovely. Does the deck construction game have a name yet? Oh, so this is technically just the first iteration, but it's going to be called a game about deciding which cards to use before the game, technically known as deck construction, designed basically just for one event. And yes, by this, I'm basically telling you all that it's designed basically for my leaving party. And then I do expect, yeah, I'm not going to be expecting people to necessarily play it again, but yeah, it'll be a free gift for well, I say a free gift. I mean, it'll be a gift for everyone attending the leaving do, and I'll consider it like almost a final, yeah, sort of beta testing, and because if I am really going to do a deck construction game, once it's done, I can't be changing the rules. It's not like the L deck where I could change the distribution of the letters. I've kept talking about how IU and OU. I don't like the fact that two of the three U's are with a vowel, and like, I could rearrange that potentially, and people would be okay with that because it's not like a competitive game where it's, oh, you've made it worse for us. I mean, as long as the other games are still kind of playable, it will still work. And I'm not going to make the other games unplayable. I'm still going to have the senorita thing on every. But like with a game about deciding which cards to use before the game, technically known as deck construction, designed basically for just for one event, the reason that that is designed for just one event is because then that gives me one last opportunity to say, okay, are these the best versions of the rules? Because I hear all the time about DCGs, CCGs, TCGs, ECGs, where people say, you know what, it would be better for the game if we did this. With a lot of retrospect, we can see that, but we don't quite have we have too much inertia. We don't want to change the rules at this point, and I don't want to get myself trapped in that way. I want to bring it out and then see what happens and say, hey, this is a free thing, and maybe some of the cards will remain exactly the same. You'll be able to play with it anyway. But Josie says, that feels sad. Maybe we have to organize an annual get-together to play our deck construction games. Yeah, I know it, but like you can meet with each other at UK Games Expo 2024. Like maybe it could be parts of the busy end thing on the Monday, like after UK. I don't know, or it could be like what an evening thing if there's demands. I don't know, but like it's like I'll leave that up to the players. I'm not going to push for it. It's not like an L deck game thing where I feel like I really want to market it and keep pushing it, and like recently organizing tournaments on Board Game Arena has made me really inspired to see, even if I have to pay someone to, once the L deck is republished, I am going to get some of the competitive games on there, because competitive games just are so much easier to evangelize, I believe. And yeah, you can play them on arena mode, you can make tournaments for them, you can invite people to play them, and then the ELO makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, anyway, it's not going to be something that I push. But obviously, if people do keep playing it, I'm not, oh my gosh, I'm going to come to your house and rip up all your cards. It's not that kind of thing. But it is very much this is the beta. This is the largest scale playtesting event I have ever done and probably will ever do for anything. Josie says, I was just thinking the deck construction game will feel sad, sitting on my shelf, unplayed, feeling unloved. I mean, you could get 2 copies, and yeah, that's I'm thinking, like, potentially, like, or maybe, like, ask someone, hey, someone who isn't probably going to play it, give your copy to someone who probably is. Maybe that's the most environmentally conscious way to do it, because I'm expecting at least half the people will be like, yeah, you know what, I'm probably not going to play this. I've played it enough over this weekend. You have my deck. And then the people who really like it will be able to take 2 of them away and give one to a local friend to play together. And then the people who aren't that fussed will give theirs away to someone else. Maybe that's a decent way to do it. It's like, I'm not going to organize necessarily a big donation thing like that, but that seems in the spirit of the event, of people just freely giving up stuff. And but yeah, it is kind of a published game. It is something that like at the point that I'm expecting to print about 150 copies, and like at least 100. At that point, like, it feels like I can legitimately put it on Board Game Geek and say, yeah, this is a published thing. I mean, it's just a really big playtest thing. And I might also, just for people who really can't make the event, I might have some sort of Kickstarter. Yeah, why not? Why break with tradition? Where you can pay me some amount of money to get all the games that are being released over that point and get them posted to you wherever you are. So even if you can't make it over, then you'll get a wee goodie bag of, hey, here's Bez's last things that she made before leaving the UK, which I am feeling a bit misty-eyed about, but I'm also feeling really excited to not be in a cold country where I need to wear jumpers all the time and, yeah, struggle with internal heating. And instead, I'm wearing a t-shirt and I'm still sweating. I will look forward to that. But yeah, but yes, I got distracted by I was talking about the flowers. Do you have a favorite flower? Yeah, you never answered. My favorite flower is the purple thistle. I also like, honestly, I just like seeing colors around. I like purple. I don't so often see red flowers around. And they're not normally blue, yellow, purple. Yeah, red, unless I'm going to the rose garden. Red seems like a less common flower color for flowers that are just easily springing up. Daffodils seem like the most common thing where I live. And yeah, but yeah, I just like flowers. But if I had to pick one flower to say, yeah, that represents me, I would absolutely go National Flower Scotland. How about you? Do you have a favourite flower? And if you don't, tell me you don't. Over to you, Walter. Up to you. You can share button if you want to. Is there anything that you want to share? Please do. I promise I care. I am I've managed to get outside today just for a quick couple of minutes, went down the fire escape, ran around for literally 30 seconds, came up the fire escape. Was more than I'd done yesterday, so still minor achievements. I'm going to try and cycle somewhere. Maybe I'll cycle to Kentish Town. Maybe I'll cycle down towards. Maybe I'll actually get myself to Somerset House today, where I was hoping to go yesterday, and check out the Nile playlist that has opened. I'm also having a chat with a friend of a busybody, of an existing busybody, wonderful busybody who has been at UK Games Expo 3 conventions with me. And yeah, I'm going to chat to their friend to see if they're a good fit. I'm sure that they will be, but it's always nice to get to know the person. And then, yeah, I'll arrange to maybe fill up some envelopes to send out first thing tomorrow. That's what I'm doing. And Josie says, my favorite flower is chickpea, but my favorite flowers are English marigolds. And also wants to say, I was playing games with some new people and they pulled out a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises. And we're like, this is a game not many people know. I was very excited. That does sound super exciting. Was this with new people who didn't know that you knew me? That's lovely. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad that it's And so yeah, what are you up to? I am still kind of taking it easy. I've got a bit of a headache. I don't know if that's physical or just stress and depression related. Well, I'm definitely going to take my meds. Honestly, chatting to you, seeing you pop in, Josie, has perked me up a little bit. It's totally lovely. And let me recap and wrap up before we finish up. It was new people and it was very lovely. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much for sharing that story. So to recap and wrap up, Categorickell. It's overdue. I am determined to get it done. A game about auctioning cubes after winning an auction to become the auctioneer. I played it with some new, simpler scoring on Friday, and it seemed to work. So I'm going to stop at this point. I feel like it's a good game. I could keep tinkering with it forever, but that could be. Yeah, my one concern is, are people going to buy a game where they have to supply their own cubes, or will they not? Because like it says, it needs additional cubes. I'm considering printing a small deck of mini cards, which you can use instead of cubes, but yeah, then I need to get into how many do I print of this. It would be much easier to just say, okay, I'm going to print 50 copies of this and hopefully I'll sell out. And if I sell out right at the end of Sunday, then I'll know it wasn't very popular. If I sell out, if a lot of people are disappointed and want a new edition, I can always reprint. It's not a bother like that. Yeah. Hashtag Drawn Together game is going to be a Kickstarter. Probably my next Kickstarter that launches once I've fulfilled all my outstanding ones. I'm really excited. I don't want to over-egg it, but I think that basically most games are about a mathematical construct. And then when you get into games about perception, it tends to be a game where, oh, I'm going to spend 5 seconds picking a card. So they don't tend to be strategic. They don't have that, I do this, then you do that. And I kind like hashtag Drawn Together game, it kind of becomes like Go in the level of, oh, if you do that, then I'm able to do. Like a lot of abstract strategy games where you need to plan ahead. And you need to think about what might happen next. And I'm really proud of that. and it has that level of strategic thinking, but at the end, it's all about aesthetics, and I think it really sets it apart. Um, a game about absurdly abstract creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises. Yeah, it's could be called a cash-in. People have enjoyed the previous ones. I like drawing creatures, so why not? A game about guessing answers to questions that no one really knows. I mean, I will have to know the answers because I'll have them on the cards, but no one else. And it's a game about estimating and then guessing whether it's higher or lower. And so you've got a 50-50 chance of winning. So, yeah. A game about making wordy connections, making group poetry. It started off at Now Play This last year, about a year and a week ago, maybe. And I'm really proud of it. And it is a game where, like I say, it is best for. I much prefer it when you get like more than 10 people. And when you get like 12 people, then it gets into the building up of a soundscape. That's my favorite part of it. But when it's like 4 people, you're still making wordy connections. And one of the directors of Now Play This told me that they really wanted a one-player game. And then after I was cycling, like I worked out how it could work. The solo version is different, but it's still about making that wordy connections, and it's kind of like impromptu found poetry almost. And talking about poems, a game with terrible rules about words that rhyme. I mean, Jane Garvani was very kind and said that my rules are brilliant, so it must be fake. But I guess the name is kind of giving myself permission to make this, even though I'm not totally clear on everything, because it's just been sitting there for 3 years now. It's an idea I had like so long ago, definitely at the start of pandemic. And yeah, a game about deciding which cards to use before the game, technically known as deck construction, designed basically just for one event, is going to be the largest scale playtest event that I've ever ran and ever probably will run, because if I want to do organized play, that is a big ask, and I'm really excited to see what people think of it. And that is all I said. Josie asks about a game about auctioning cubes after winning an auction to become the auctioneer. How many auctions does it need? I've been sticking. So you need 3 colors. I'm not quite sure of the exact number. I've been sticking 20 of each color into a bag, and I think that might be more than is mathematically needed. I could design it so you only need 15 of each color, which is going to make it maybe more likely that you have things of one color. I think that 10 of each color is probably too few, especially if you go up to 6 players. Yeah, I'm really excited by it. People who've playtested it, when I've asked them, would you play it again? Would you buy it off a shop shelf? People have said, well, I'm comparing it to modern art, and I prefer modern art to this. And like, frankly, to be compared to one of the best auction games of all time, I'm really proud of that. And some people have said, you know what? This is like a simpler version of modern art. It has that same excitement for me, and it has all the best bits, but with more simplicity. And I will warn you, genuinely, if you bid all your money in the first turn, you can do that. There's nothing in the game stopping you doing that, and you will lose. If you bid all your money, you will literally lose if you make a ridiculously absurd bid. And so you do need to be canny with your money. You are not getting any more money unless you've got money to spend to become the auctioneer. But yeah, there is the potential for someone to go out the game, but I've only seen that happen twice, and in one of those instances, the person doing it was literally well, everyone's always known that it was a playtest, and in one of those, the person was explicitly and very clearly pushing the game and trying to be as chaotic as possible. So they knew they were kind of taking themselves out of the game. And in the other instance, yes, the person ended up with just one card. They could have come in again, but yeah, at the end they said, yeah, I made bad decisions, I would play it again. It's basically, if you don't like the possibility of going out the game, if you don't like the auctions, it's not a game for you. And Josie says, I'm excited about the hashtag Drawn Together game as I really enjoy it. Thank you very much. And you know, the fact that you're actually using the correct name for all my game, despite their awkward things, it really gives me so much joy. Thank you very much. And so that is my recap and wrap up. If you feel like this is a video that other people should watch, then please do share, spread the word, YouTube link or whatever. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Whether you're watching right now, thank you, Josie, obviously, for commenting along, joining in. But I see that we have got at least one other lurker. And thank you, Sarah Tuffery, for watching on Facebook. And yeah, and to anyone watching after the fact, thank you for, I guess, validating me. Thank you for making me feel like it's worthwhile carrying on. Thank you for making me feel like, I mean, I don't want to over egg it, but it kind of making stuff, it does. I don't have like children. I don't have like a partner, but like, yeah, this is kind of like the thing that gives my life meaning, making games and hopefully bringing joy or bringing valuable experiences to other people. So knowing that other people get value, whether that's from playing the games or even just hearing about the games. And I know some people say, oh, or pondering it. Like, I'm appreciative that thank you for listening and whatever. I am Stuffed by Bez in all of the places. If you want to know what I'm generally up to, I'm stuffedbybez.com/streams. It'll tell you about my convention appearances. And yeah, next week, I don't have any definite topics. I'm going to do lots of solo stuff, I guess. And then in the following week, I'll be chatting with Jess and Leyland about something. But yeah, if you've got any questions for future streams, then please ask me and I might do quick wee things. Otherwise, I think there's not much left to say. And thank you very much, Josie. That's a super lovely thing to read. And thank you. And yes, I will try and get my stuff together. I probably won't do a drawing whilst playing. I might do some quick reviews over the next week. Yeah, I'll finally review some of the games that I've been meaning to do. That's what I'll do. Maybe do a session on how to play some of your games solo. Yeah, that's got a 40% chance of happening. It's almost certainly not happening tomorrow because just the thoughts of setting up the camera and everything does give me, yeah, I've got to I will see about sorting out the space so that I can do that. That is a good idea. And you know what? I will do some solo testing of Questable potentially. And I'll show you a couple of the diabolical levels which me and Kirsten have now, since Aircon, we've designed 2 diabolical levels. Kirsten designed one, and then I managed to design one. And the diabolical levels, I've not managed to finish either of them. Kirsten finished her own one on her 20th attempt and finished my one on her 4th attempt. So I was really impressed with that. I tried both of them like 4 times each and didn't quite manage. So yeah, but yeah, maybe I'll show some Questable or indeed the game that's just about to come out, Dwindle. I'll show that. And yeah. What other solo games do I have? I'll have to have a wee ponder. Are they all for the L deck? Do I have any other solo games? I guess the one that I just mentioned, a game about wordy. But yeah, I'm going to say goodbye at this point. Lots of love, so much love. Thank you for joining in. And the only thing left for me to say, as always, is bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Blue, blue, bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Blue, bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye bye, everyone, and I hope you have a super wonderful day. Bye bye. Bye bye.